Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good happy lunch time here in Sweden, anyway. So we are having another AMA today. Ontology is here to present their project. My name is Mary, and I want to remind everyone that this is no financial advice, but some information about the project, and you should always do your own research, guys. So with that said, we have, let me see, can I unmute you? No? Ontology.
Hey, Mary.
Oh, you're already unmuted.
I am here, yes, yes.
Mr. G.F. Richards, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Very welcome, sir. Happy to have you
No,
here.
thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's going to be interesting to hear about ontology. I must admit, I don't know much about your project before I heard I'm gonna interview you. So now I know a little bit, but I'm looking forward to know even more. And I'm sure all of us are in here. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself first? Who are you to the project, Geoff? And when did you start having this position?
Yes, I've been doing things with Ontology for a couple of years, maybe 3 years actually now.
Okay.
And I do a lot of stuff with the community. Ontology run a Harbinger program. So these are a group of people who really work around the community and with the project to make sure there's a link between people doing the development and the work that's going on behind the scenes and the community itself. And so there's always this conversation that's facilitated by the Harbingers backwards and forwards. So we specialize in making sure that if anybody's got any problems around staking and the proof of stake mechanism, we can answer it, or any questions about the development on the project, or if they've got any recommendations. We sort of fit that gap between the project itself and the community.
That's cool. It's like a foundation, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. So we think it's really important that there is that communication. When people are working on projects, so look, it's Web3. Everybody works on a million different things. So on the other things I work on, one of the things I'm very aware of is that teams building things and teams working on things have a lot going on. It's very difficult for them to be constantly in touch with the community.
Yeah.
So if you can feed that through just, a handful of people who know the project really well, who have got the community's best interest at heart and the project's best interest at heart, I just think it makes it a nice, smooth communication, and it works for everybody. Everybody wins.
Perfect. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's education is very important, I think, in crypto in general, and especially when it's like a big project like Ontology. That's its own blockchain and everything. It's an ecosystem. So why don't you also tell me about more the project, the Ontology? What is Ontology for someone who doesn't really know it at all?
Okay, so no. So there's the simple answer and then a slightly more complicated answer. So let's start with the simple stuff.
Let's have both. Yeah.
yeah. As you rightly say, right, Ontology is a public blockchain, and it says all the things that public blockchains want to say. It's fast, it's cheap, it's easy to build on. It's got the Ethereum virtual machine. It supports lots of different languages and does all these things. Now, I think that's really important, and I think it's really good. But I don't think it makes any blockchain unique. I think that's become almost a standard. It's what you require. Yeah, that's what you require from a blockchain. That's what you want. So that's the simple stuff, and not overly exciting or interesting, but Ontology fulfills that standard blockchain technology, and it is quick and it is cheap. It's much cheaper than say some of the more famous and popular blockchains. But
we all know who you mean.
what actually makes it stand apart is what it specializes in and builds and delivers upon, and that's digital identity and decentralized identity and decentralized data. And the reason it stands apart in these fields is because it actually builds solutions ready to deploy. So you can get something like the ONT ID, which has got a suite of features around identity, passwordless logins, all the things you'd expect from a robust decentralized identity. And it takes them all as a package. We refer to it as the own infrastructure, the Ontology Web3 network infrastructure. And you can just deploy them on a project. So if you're wanting to launch anything, it could be something on DeFi, it could be GameFi, it could be NFTs, and you want to incorporate some sort of identity or some sort of ID or data control on there, then we actually have those modules ready to pull off the shelf and just deploy. And that just saves a lot of building time, a lot of cost, a lot of expense. And, we recently made the SDKs open source on some of those so people can just use them. And I think that's what really separates Ontology from a lot of the other chains. We're big believers across Ontology, myself as well. We're big believers in the future being multi-chain, cross-chain. And so I think what's going to be important is, while I don't believe for a second, I hope I'm right on this, by the way, in the future, I don't think users will care what chain they're on. I don't think they'll even know what chain they're on. I think they'll just use Web3, they'll use crypto, they'll just use it, and it will be easy.
I 100% agree with you there. Can you give an example of when you would need this identity?
Absolutely. And I can give you some direct examples from things we have on Ontology. And so think about things like music, right? NFT music's becoming more popular. It's not got as popular as I expected it to, but I still think maybe when the market gets a little bit healthier and people don't feel as burnt as they've been from some of the recent happenings, then I think music NFTs could be the next thing to kick off. Now, if you're doing music, one of the problems is how do you make sure you know who owns it? How do you make sure you actually know who the creator is, for one, and that creator gets paid as they should get paid? And how do you know who actually owns maybe a very specialist NFT track with some limited edition things on? And linking that to an identity can really solve some of the problems around making sure that the royalties get paid in the right place. And so the Ontology ID, the ONT ID, actually allows you to tag NFTs, for instance, with the creator so you know who actually owns it. You can go further and think about DeFi, right, with this ever-growing move towards under-collateralized lending or no collateral lending as well. And so Ontology has an O score, which gives you like a decentralized credit score linked to your identity. And things like that become really important if we're going to go down the path of low collateral or no collateral lending, where people's reputation, where people's actual behavior on chain and even off chain can help guide decisions around whether people get the loans or not, whether people can access certain amounts of credit. And so I think that's really important. We also work with Orange Protocol, and they do online reputation, for instance, and that is linked to your identity again. And so
when you say identity, do I have to have my real name, location, everything, or do I create an identity that only someone knows, and then
this is the interesting bit, right? And this is what really excites me about it. So you can do several things. You can have different levels of identity that you build up. It could just be your on-chain identity, and by on-chain identity, that could just be your wallet address in the first instance, and your behavior could just be linked to that wallet address. So think about if you're working in DAOs or doing things in DAOs. We don't need you to be fully doxed. We don't need you to be fully identified, KYC'd, and so on. But we need to know the person who's interacting behind doing everything. And so that could be really simple, just like your wallet address and then a collection of your actions on chain, the reputation you build up on chain. Conversely, though, it could also be everything. You could have your driving license, your passport, your medical records, and everything stored within a digital identity. And this is a really cool part. At the moment, when you verify yourself with traditional identities, it's very difficult for you to choose what you do and what you don't share with people. When you share your identity, you give people access to lots and lots of things. The advantage with decentralized identity and the ONT ID system is you can actually say, okay, I only need to prove that I'm 18. Nobody's going to believe I'm 18, by the way. But you might only need to prove you're 18. and so you can use decentralized identity to simply prove that one item without giving them anything else, without giving them your full name and address, without giving them your
your
passport.
Choice.
It's your choice.
You own your property. You own yourself.
This is it. So you'll see when people talk about identity, they'll talk about it as like and use terms like self-sovereign. The idea that you have control over it. It is yours to give away the bits you want to give away and keep control of the bits you don't. And I think that's quite important, especially when we see so many things with data breaches. You see some of the big social media giants, they're in and out of court all the time, or, whether it be people who running email lists campaigns or even across the board, data breaches becoming more and more regular. And so actually having control of it yourself and actually being behind and locked up behind your wallet address and the security of crypto, where actually the biggest risk to your security is probably yourself. This goes back to you saying education is really important. It actually really, really is, because we are still the biggest risk to our own security when it comes to crypto.
Yeah. I mean, how will you prevent if it's only the wallet address and maybe some avatar or something, and just a few other maybe things about me, what's going to prevent me from doing like 10 of these identities and still like do some scammy things with one or two of them,
Okay, so this is where it comes to how powerful that identity is, right? So if your identity is just linked to a wallet and it's literally just a recording of your actions on chain and you've done a few things, then okay, there's some faith there, there's some trust there. But the reality is it's not going to carry the same weight as if you have all your government issued ID that can be verified. And so I think it depends on what you're wanting to do. If you're in a DAO, then maybe the outcomes of you doing a few scammy things aren't huge. They're unpleasant, but it's not going to be hugely damaging to society. It's not going to be hugely damaging, maybe even to the DAO infrastructure. Whereas actually, if you want to go and rent a car and drive it around, then we really need to know who you are. And so I think there are differences in the extent of how important the situation is when you're proving your identity. And people will want different things. Obviously, if you want to take out $1 million loan, people aren't going to accept, oh, this person's contributed to 2 DAOs, paid back 2 loans of $1,000. But they might accept if they've got all your financial history, who you actually are, and so on. So I think that's nothing. The short answer is nothing's going to stop you apart from the power of that identity. And if you've created, then it's going to be really hard for you to populate 10 identities with enough good reputation for you to then abuse it in a powerful way.
Well, I think it's a very good idea. And I think there was something I was wondering. I think I lost it now. That is also like important to know who is really behind these identities and how much. Now I know. Where do you give up this? If I give you all my identity, 100% of me, everything there is to know about me, who takes all these things and store them, and where are they stored? How secure can I feel that they are not going somewhere else? Well, I have the 100% ownership of them.
I think that's exactly the problem we have in the current situation with identity. I mean, how many people do you give that identity up to? Quite a lot, right? From Google to Facebook to government records across the board. You give it up a lot. Number two, where does that go to? Well, it tends to be centralized, right? These are central systems that people and we see data breaches because when we move on chain, here's a nice thing. Where is it stored? On the blockchain. Who can access it? Your key, just your key. And in terms of giving up all that data, you don't even have to. You can hand over the bits you need. But it's like having crypto crypto in a wallet, right? If you've got some crypto in a wallet, nobody's asking that unless you give them the to it, unless you lose control. Nobody else can do anything with it. And identity is exactly the same. On chain, it's not centrally stored. It's across, say, with Ontology, proof of stake, got these different interconnected nodes, and to access it, you have to drive it. It's that. So nobody has. It's not stored in some server that can be hacked.
That's good, because I think we had a similar project here a few months back, and I think they were like a company that you should give up everything to them, and that's also not secure. Maybe they were good, maybe they can be bad or breached or whatever, So what you say sounds a little bit better, I think.
Well, I don't want to. You don't want to. We talk a lot about trusts and a system where you don't have to trust anybody else. You don't need somebody in the middle that you have to and have faith in and trust in. Make trust a question. Just remove it. So you no longer have to think about it. And at that point, it's much easier to deal with different actors. You can deal direct with people. You're not having things over. And that's Ontology really pushes forward with what it does different to other just public blockchains.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Ontology has been out there since, I think, 2017, 18, somewhere. And so you have been through
5 years
already.
That's right, which is a lifetime in crypto.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the history, what has happened, and maybe also what's gonna happen? Where are you going from
absolutely.
here?
So it's out with just like blockchain. 5 years ago, creating blockchains that issues was a holy grail. And so Ontology built the public blockchain with a slightly different consensus algorithm. I'm not going into this. It's boring for people from the really technical.
Okay, don't.
But what they did was quite interesting. Is they went with a two-token system. So they went with a staking and then a gas token, similar to Neo project uses as well. And that sort of keeps some of the gas fees pretty low and keeps them down and enables you to do that a little bit better. And so we start off with this public blockchain just out there, ready for people to. They spend a few years really working on sharding designs, actually launching the main net, and then they got to version 2, and so they built this public blockchain up. Then in 21, just the Ontology on there to having the Ethereum virtual machine. Now, if anybody doesn't know what EVM is for sure, Ethereum virtual machine, EVM, anybody doesn't know what it is, essentially, it enables any blockchain that isn't on Ethereum to use Ethereum languages, infrastructure for developers to build upon. And so it just takes all which Ethereum have become ubiquitous in what they do, how they operate. Most of the developers are on there. So it makes sense to make it easy for developers to enable to build in the Ethereum ecosystem, use it on different chains. So it was a big move for Ontology because we launched the EVM. And that's kind of the infrastructure move as we move through. But alongside that, there were entity protocols, right? So, and they've always been sort of at the heart of trying to work with organizations what the standards should be. So working with the Global Decentralized Identity Alliance, working with the World Wide Consortium, try and get these standards so they make sense for people. And so in the early years, Ontology worked quite closely with those people to get the standards sorted. In 2020, they launched the O-score systems, or decentralized credit scoring system. In 2021, ONT ID came out, which is including login solutions, tagging solutions, so you can identify things. And 2022 was when we really pushed out the full infrastructure for Web3, and this includes and tag systems, but also things like what we call Mercury, which enables communication across Web3 applications And it doesn't sound that interesting. Applications to communicate in a trustless, secure manner across chains, across protocols, is really important for this future of cross-chain work. And so moving to 2022. And throughout that time, various applications have launched. We had Onto in 2018, but in the era of wallet really came into its own right as a project in the cross-chain app that hosts lots of adapters, lots of giveaways, built a community, and is built really quickly. Wing Finance launched using the O-score system, and Wing Finance do some DeFi. They launched in the O-score system and then doing flash pools on the Ontology chain, but because they believe cross-chain, they're now on Ethereum or Bi chain, and their other chain got 5 chains now. In 20.
So when you say O-score,
yes,
what really is that? Can you explain that a little bit?
O-score is the way to monitor your history within DeFi protocols. Say, if you get a loan, are you an actor in the DeFi space? And it enables people to build a score around their credit and their reputation for maybe lower collateralized lending. So instead, having to be 150% collateralized, maybe you have to be 90% collateralized because you've got a good reputation, and then you can carry on in that.
ID. When you said you're building up your ID credentials.
Built around, the score on top of the ID credentials.
Okay. All right.
And so then in 2020 was quite a big deal. So Daimler Mobility, who Mercedes-Benz parent, welcome home for their cars. And here that using your identity, your car would know who you are and keep track of all those bits of data, all those references around. Really cool. 2020, I mentioned the music streaming. That was a partnership with a company called Rocky, who do stream NFTs and so to there. And also worked with people like MicroWords to provide identity solutions for people who would do freelance work. There's been quite a few things going through. What's called another big one launched across ID projects. They are doing the identity-based self and reputation, enabling people to develop Web3 identities. And then finally, I've been rambling on for a long time.
It's very
in 22. Well, in 22, we big fun to encourage people to build on Ontology EVM. We wanted to encourage us to come across and build.
You made your own EVM, or no?
No. So sorry, I told you. Ethereum EVM on Ontology. That was misleading.
Okay. Okay.
The Ethereum EVM, the Ontology chain. It's because lots of chains have Ethereum. The Ethereum on the Ontology chain, and we launched a fund of around $10 million to encourage people to come and build projects on installing on there. And so
you give out sponsorships or
grants for people. Yes. We ran with Dora Hacks, we ran hackathons and voted people to choose to come and build their projects. And over time we've seen Ontology, I'm not sure now, it's over 1.6 million people have now registered an Ontology for actually having identity to use within Web3, and hopefully moving forward into the real world. That's a very quick history of years building.
No, I mean, so far you can you use this ID in lots of places?
So the ID is usable in certain places, right? So the reality is it needs spreading them. Decentralized identity, while we've been building it, it only just really get a lot of popularity and a lot of understanding about how it can. And part of the point in launching the million, we actually talked to people who were looking at building it to use online identity. You can use Orange Protocol. You can use Orange Protocol for which is on top of the ONT ID, and you can start building your reputation. Now, for people like myself, across a range of projects in Web, building that identity is really important. When I have to do work with, I have to prove what I've done. I have to prove the projects I've been involved in, how I've worked, and so on. And so having a reputation score and a YouTube record, you know, they have to trust me. They can look on done and how I've worked becomes really important. Yeah, you know, you can use it across a range of things. And that's, you know, talking about moving forward, really is what the moving forward, you know, it is the ID solution into more free applications. The dream of course, is that we don't just stop in Web3 and that Web3 eventually joins together with the real world and just move seamlessly from your identity into your Web3 identities. But that requires mass adoption by people. And fortunately, I think we're still a way off the general public adopt Web3 and crypto as a normal stand behavior.
Yeah, I think what you said in the beginning is key to this, that there is so many blockchains, there's so many different technical stuff that the normal people, they won't bother with. It's too complicated. I mean, first time I bought on PancakeSwap, it was like it took days to buy my first token, you know, and it shouldn't be that complicated if we want mass adoption. That's impossible.
I totally,
as you said,
agree.
We need a good things or apps or dApps or things that we can use in our daily life, and that's when mass adoption will come, I think.
I absolutely agree. So we need the killer app if you want to get into the, but we all need to remove those areas, right? I mean, when I first started in crypto, I remember sending my first transfer, and it wasn't even much, but I was terrified. I thought, never that again. And I don't. Yeah. Just write it off. If I lose it, I lose it. A pay turn, if you like. Learning from my mistakes, and I've made plenty over the time I've been in crypto, but it puts people off because it's not very friendly. You know, even if you're just setting up an Onto wallet or a MetaMask, or you know, you're dealing. If you're thinking, oh, I'm going to liquidity vision, or I'm going to get into. This is why I think NFTs are so popular. Because they're quite easy to get your head around. They can be very complicated, but the simple ones, quite you get your head around. And I think that's a good way in for some people. But yeah, we need to improve that onboarding experience.
I think so too. I think there's so many like technical people still in crypto, or more the majority of the people in crypto are very technical and like that side, and they think like that, and that's what they build and do. They don't think, but I see people starting to come in that think more like we need this to work for anyone, you know. Out there.
Absolutely. Well, I went full time in crypto some years later. I moved full time in Web3 crypto, however we want to term it, and I always joke to work with. Fortunately, some are built by the nerds a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And we need to find a way to stop doing that. Find a way to really stop doing that and making it accessible to people.
We need more people like me who has no clue about that and tell the nerds what we need. You know.
No, absolutely.
That's
you know.
Good. Yeah, it's good. All right. Cool. So you also have your own coin, we call it, right? That you can buy anywhere on lots of exchanges, I assume. Where does that fit in? Is that mainly for when you build or trade or use it as
yes?
Fee, or?
So two tokens. The token, which is the governance and staking token. So the ONT is designed for governance. So you make it essentially, that's what it is, for staking into one of the nodes as part of the consensus mechanism. And you then, whichever node you choose, when there is a vote, and there is not loads and loads of governance goes on in Ontology. It's not like a traditional DAO structure in that aspect. But when there is a vote, your token use that node as part of the vote, not used in terms of used up, but to represent their right to vote.
You get a share to vote.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the time that stake, this is my term, proper staking. I think genuine staking requires a lockup period. I don't believe that staking where you can just unlock within a minute is actually genuine staking. That's I think stake is supposed to be proof of stake. You've got a stake in the ecosystem. You've got skin in the game, if you like. I think if you can withdraw within a minute and sell, you don't actually have skin in the game. And so on the ontology staking, you are in for a full round, for a full consensus round, which can last anywhere between 8 and 15 days on average, somewhere around there. And then every 8 or 15 days, you get rewarded in ontology gas, ONG token. And anybody who knows NEO, it's a very similar system. And so you stake your ONT, which is the governance token and the staking token, and you get back ontology gas, which, as the name suggests, is the gas token. This is what you pay for every transaction with, and you get back for staking. And they're still in a position very slow. Ontology is an entire release of ontology gas. It's still got about another 9 or 10 years to go. So it's a slow release, so to put a market shock in there. So the idea is that it releases more and more in the ecosystem as the ecosystem goes more and more and requires more gas. But you also get it in terms of fees, like any staking system. Node runners get the fees. Those fees get shared between the stakers. And so 2 tokens, ontology token staking and ontology gas token, ONG, paying to actually run on.
So your main audience or customer or user are actually the developers who are going to develop these apps that we daily users can use.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Exactly. So we push towards people trying to build solutions for identity, but not just solutions for people at GameFi, right? Think about GameFi as an up-and-coming Web3 industry. GameFi actually knowing who the gamer is, knowing who is there, especially if you're going to introduce any ownerships within there. And let's face it, anybody who's done any gaming in Web3, things are expensive. Charge too much money. There's a barrier to entry to getting involved in GameFi. So you want to make sure that you set in by identities and by everything there. So anybody building an identity solution are the sort of people we always want to touch. And then if you want to use, say you want to use Wing Finance to do some DeFi, you're going to need some to pay some of the fees on the ontology chain. And likewise, developers will need to ONG pay for any transactions that happen. And so, still tricks and our collection project built upon EVM or ontology itself.
Okay, cool. So I hear that some people might not be able to hear me anymore. Can I have thumbs up from you guys if you can hear me out here? We have this sometimes. It happens. I don't know.
This is always a friendly position to host.
It isn't. Sometimes it just shut down. I see no thumbs up. 1. Well, we 2 hear each other, right?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
Now I see lots of thumbs up. That's good. All right. So how will you move forward now? Because I think I stopped you before when you started to talk about the future of ontology. What's in the pipeline? What's coming? The vision.
So in the pipeline is this still sort of building out that decentralized identity technology, finding to incorporate it into actually launching projects that are actually running and need a solution. A lot of it is 2 things. One, it's the same thing, but in different angles. Removing barriers. That's the thing. So removing barriers for developers building. So we want to make it as easy as possible for developers to build. And it's making our SDKs available for them, making sure that our identity solution really to use, making sure that we listen to the make it work as it needs to work. And the second point is removing barriers for users. And we've spoke about that a little bit already. And it's really important that we do this. And this is why Actually, we're quite proud of Onto Wallet for this. Onto Wallet is what we sort of term the gateway to Web3 for people, in that we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to access all the different applications built in Web3, all the different places. Now, sounds like an easy job, right? We're so used to good user interfaces. We're so used to things that just work, since I'm going to show my age, since the first Apple phone actually stopped smartphones being rubbish, which they were, Apple came in and released something that the user experience was just so much better. I remember using WAP phones. That does tell you how old I am. And the user experience was really, really bad. And it's hard to get right. It takes a long time. And so moving forward, it's developing that ease of access for users, finding ways to make sure that everything we're building together with people, all the little collaborations we do, all the things we launch are as easy to access, not just for developers, but for users as well. And of course, at the same time, identity doesn't stand still. We will have to develop new solutions for identity, making sure that anything where it needs to link up to the real world, it's robust enough to do that. It's robust enough to go cross-chain and all those things. So lots of development, but a big focus on removal of barriers, making it easier for people.
Yeah, and this wallet, can anyone use it for any coin, or which chains are?
Oh, pretty much, right. So it's absolutely cross-chain. It goes. I can't even remember the amount of chains. It was bewildering. I looked at it and I didn't even know so many chains existed, if I'm totally honest. So it works totally across chain. It supports everything. I've never come across anything I wanted to use it for that it didn't support. And it supports dApps within the wallet as well. So Onto Wallet, you can actually go in and use the dApps within the wallet with your ID, and just move around. And they do lots of really cool giveaways and competitions and things.
Do you have a browser in there as well as Trust Wallet?
So there's and it's a mobile wallet and it's a web wallet as well. So you can install it just like you would MetaMask on your browser, and you can use a built-in browser to do things. It works really, really well. It develops. I think every time I see an update, a weekly report, I think it's gone to the next version. So they're constantly iterating new versions of it to improve and to incorporate different things. And this is a real big push for Ontology, making sure that we support Onto Wallet as much as we can, because that's going to be key. As we've said a couple of times, it's going to be key for people finding their way and staying in Web3, is having a good experience once you're there.
Yeah, I agree. I have a good question here from Matt, actually. I know he can't talk, he told me. So with the ONT wallet having access to KYC, is this just an optional feature for those wanting to use ONT ID, or is it like Concordium where KYC is compulsory to do anything on the Ontology network?
Okay, so ONT ID is not what you would consider a KYC in the first place. You can set it up without giving away any details, right? You can just set it up. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's totally optional. You can choose to run it in DID mode, decentralized identity mode, or you can choose just to run it as a wallet. So yeah, it's absolutely optional how you run it.
Okay, that's good. And does it work when you say it supports all of the chains? Does it work in the MetaMask way that you have to like register another chain and like have them on different places, or is it all in one? If you understand what I mean.
No, so yeah, it's similar to MetaMask. You have to set it up. It does it pretty much automatically, similar to MetaMask. Once you try and interact with something, it installs the chain for you, right? It sort of sets up all the required parameters. Again, similar to MetaMask on some things, sometimes you need to put some details in, but that's easily done for some people, not so easy for others. But on the whole, it just installs them automatically for you. But yes, because they are different chains, there is a setup which is mainly automated. So if you're used to MetaMask, you can think about it almost in exactly the same way.
Okay. About the OSCOR, here is another question. Potentially small real-world retailers, etc., could use it for their finance options instead of creation. Barclays, etc., which have high fees for retailers, have there been any trials of it being used by real-world businesses so far?
So I might get told off for this, but I'm going to go off. I'm going to take my ontology hat off for a second. I really love that question. So my full-time job in crypto is actually linking DeFi to real-world businesses, SMEs, and trying to organize lending. And so that's actually what I do on a full-time role. I think things like OSCOR absolutely have a role to play in this. And I talk to Ontology about OSCOR all the time because one of the things I really want to try and figure out is how can you record those credit scores for these SMEs that can't access finance. You know, whoever wrote that question really knows the space pretty well. They struggle to access finance. They struggle not because they're not good businesses. They can often be really, really solid businesses, but because of the size of them, banks either aren't interested or they don't understand the business properly, so they're a little bit conservative. And I think my personal view is DeFi has got liquidity and struggles to make sustainable yield, and these small businesses make good yield but struggle to get the liquidity they need to grow. And so my other job is pulling those two things together and making those two things work. And I think OSCOR has a role to play in those sort of systems. I think understanding how we can link that together and generate reputation and credit scoring in the real world that can be used on chain is going to be big when it's right, when it gets it right. OSCOR is getting there. I'd be lying if I said we were there, but I hope maybe in the next year we will get there with it.
But is OSCOR built by you then, by Ontology?
OSCOR is built by Ontology, yes.
Okay. So here's a slightly follow-up question. Is OSCOR something that could be used by real-world businesses, or would there be potential regulation issues for offering DeFi finance payments options through brick-and-mortar retailers? KYC might be compliant, but not sure about financial regulatory bodies.
No, it's a great question. And you're giving me a bit of cold sweats here because, again, this is what I do. So I'm in Singapore, right? So I'm in Singapore, and we have the Monetary Authority of Singapore that is very, very, very tight on crypto, on lending, on peer-to-peer lending, and all these things. And it's a minefield, right? It's an absolute minefield in making sure that you work within regulation. I think OSCOR itself, it's very easy for it to offer a credit score. I think it's very easy to be within regulations to do that. I think people using it have to be much more careful around their due diligence on how they provide those loans, on how it is done. And I'm in a highly regulated environment, and we are getting there for what I do. We are getting there. I think by March we'll have ticked all the boxes and we'll be launching our real world lending product. OSCOR doesn't have those problems. I think OSCOR is easy to be used. It's the people who will use it that will have to tick the boxes, if that makes sense.
All right. I hope you're happy with that answer, Matt, if you're in here still. Yeah, I see you there. All right. Yeah, Matt always have great questions.
They were good questions. I liked them.
Yeah. So is there something that you would like to share with us, or shall we take some other questions?
I'm happy to take some questions. I've done a lot of talking. The problem is, Mary, I will talk forever given a chance. So let's take some questions and I'll shut up a little bit.
How much time do you have?
I've got a little bit of time. I at some point my wife will come knocking and staring through the door to see what I'm up to, but okay, I'm okay for now.
You're not jumping off to another meeting or something?
No. No, it's quarter to 8 at night here.
Okay. That's good. So I wanted to know more about the team. I didn't ask about that, right? How many people are working with Ontology at the moment?
So yeah, it's a difficult one. So team's quite a difficult thing because the idea is that it's a public blockchain, right? So while there's a tech team, that a core team, if you like, that do certain work on it, And there's quite a few, and if you go, actually, bit of a plug, if you go onto the Ontology website, you can actually see the main team members. There's no hidden people here. You can actually see the main team on there. From Jun Lee, who was the founder, Eric, who looks after the American ecosystem, Humpty's head of community, Dr. Kendall Mao, who is one of the smartest men I've ever read his work and done things with. He's the chief scientist there. But then there are lots of other people around in terms of looking after some of the marketing or some of the HR things and things like that. And then, of course, because we're in crypto, right, there's a host of people working across, whether it be the harbingers, whether it be advisors, whether it be business and development people, there's a host of people working across there as well. And what I did want to plug is they're pretty much always recruiting. Ontology always have at least 2 or 3 jobs up. So, it's well worth checking out the website. They pretty much always have open roles.
All right, very good. So in a little research I did, and I got some help with it actually, there is something called Mercury.
Yep.
Mercury. Sorry. And this allows peer-to-peer ID verification, so we can buy and sell stuff from each other without knowing each other, or is that what it's for, or can you elaborate on that?
So yeah, it's communication protocol, and at its very heart. So in a simple way, it allows everybody on Web3, all the protocols on Web3, to communicate. This Ontology is also very interested in data. It's something that I probably should have mentioned for the future. It's something that they started building, the idea of self-sovereign data, owning your own data, but it still needs to be worked out and developed to be as robust as the identity solution. Something like Mercury is really important for enabling communication across Web3 between different projects, different protocols, different blockchains. So you can actually keep track of that data, especially big data. It's possible to generate so much data, and it makes it much easier to keep track of those conversations. More complex than that, and I'm going to put a proviso in here that this is my understanding, and I am not a tech person by any stretch of the imagination. My understanding is that it also has the capabilities to communicate from Web3 to Web2, which becomes a really interesting proposition when we start trying to think about how we link Web3 and Web2. This sometimes gets me into trouble, but I'm going to be totally upfront here, I am not a Web3 maxi. Right, I think Web3 has its role to play in lots of different areas. I think Web2 also has a role to play in lots of different areas. I don't believe in a future where it's either Web3 or Web2. I believe in a future where they work together and we get good communication between the two and they work to their own strengths. That's my own view. So having something that can communicate across those areas actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I had a good question here. I think it was North. He's also in here, I see. Does Ontology Wallet support NFTs from other chains? And also, can you tell me more about the Ontology loyal member NFTs? What benefits can we get from having it?
Okay, yeah. So Onto Wallet absolutely does support NFTs across a few chains, and that is something they keep building on. They keep building better NFT support, and my suspicion is they've got one eye on a proper, fully functioning NFT marketplace at some point. That's not confirmed. That's my personal suspicion. So yes, to your first question. Ontology Loyal NFT is essentially what is given out to community members who get involved with things. And it's used mainly when you collect, I think it's 10, you get airdropped some ONG as a reward, so you just get some ONG. That's the main thing. But we're always looking, so the harbingers are always talking about ways that we can also use them to better reward people. We've not come up with a good idea yet. So mainly, you get a loyalty NFT for taking part in quizzes, in calls, in conversations we have. And then when you collect 10, you get some free Ontology gas. That's what they're mainly used for. But we're always looking at ways to innovate and improve what they could do for the community. But we haven't come up with anything worth pursuing yet.
Okay. There are lots of questions still about this ID. What is the process for creating an ONT decentralized ID on the Ontology platform? And I mean, how do you do it? And is it possible for a user to have multiple IDs? Oh, we have that question already. Are there any AI or manual measures in place to prevent multiple IDs from being created by a single user?
Okay, so in terms of creating an ID, it's as simple as creating a wallet address, right? It's a slightly different front end, but you follow the same process. So if you've created a wallet address ever, do the same for ID. You don't have to put anything up. I will quickly touch on the protection against multiple IDs. The reality is it's not actually necessary in the first instance, because if you create an ID, that ID holds nothing of value. You can't do anything with it in the first instance. It's only when you start building up a history, a reputation, when you start populating it with different parts of verifiable credentials. This is a key term, credentials that can be verified. When you start populating an ID with those things, then it becomes useful. Now, if you want to create 10, to make it useful, you're only going to be populating it with the same credentials anyway. So it's not actually worth doing. You can't just create an ID and then be like, oh, I've got an ID, I can do what I want. It's not like a driving license. It's not a passport. It's an area for you to store verifiable credentials. So you still have to build that reputation. You still have to link different credentials into it. So there's no reason actually to prevent people creating 10 because they just keep putting the same credentials in there.
All right, good. So maybe I should unmute someone also in here. We'll have one, see if we are lucky. Sometimes we have problems with they can't connect, and that's why I'm reading the questions instead. Let's have Mario. And we try both Marios. Let's see which one comes first.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. What is your question, Mario?
Okay, so my question is, what is your strongest advantage that you think will make your team leading the market?
Did you understand that?
Mario, am I right? Give me a thumbs up if I'm right. Were you asking what I think our advantage is to make us successful in this market?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So I think, as I was saying earlier, I think the real advantage we have is twofold. And that's number one, that we have a definite aim, and that aim is to build a platform where robust decentralized identity, robust data control can be incorporated into projects that build upon it. And the second advantage linked to that is that we've been building this for 5 years, right? We've been through different markets. We've been through different ups and downs. It's a mature solution to a problem, and it's ready to go out of the box. And I think that is a really strong message for people, especially institutions that have got such a lack of faith in the crypto space at the moment due to a lot of the problems we've seen. Somebody like Ontology, who's been around for so long and been building a solution for so long, actually earns more trust in difficult markets that are low on trust at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mario. I unmuted Victor. Do you have a question, Victor? Victor, you have to unmute yourself. Or Oliver. Victor or Oliver? No question from you? I'm trying one more then.
Rick. Hello.
There he is.
Hello.
Hello, Victor.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you have a question?
Okay, so my question is, how do you bring Web3 into a better name and bring Web3 in society is the future? And what if Web3 start to dim in blockchain? What will you do? That's my question.
Okay. Web3
I'm afraid
question?
I missed that one a little bit, Mary. Can you help me out with that one?
Yeah, no. I think it was like, Victor, what do you want to know about the Web3?
Yeah, Web3. Can I repeat my question?
Yeah, do that.
Okay. So my question is, how do you bring Web3 into a better name and bring Web3 in society is the future? And what if Web3 start to dim in blockchain? What will you do?
How to
Okay, I
bring
think,
Web3 out there.
yeah, I think that was the essence of the question, right?
Yeah.
I think it's twofold again. I like saying twofold answers. I noticed this. I think it's twofold. One, we have to actually have things that people want to do. And my personal view, obviously I'm in the space, I think we've got some amazing things from some games that are coming out to, I love DeFi. DeFi gives access and opportunity to people in a way that has never been done before. I love NFTs. I think some of the solutions on NFTs, just some of the fun and communities on NFTs are fantastic. And so I think we have a product that people would be interested in. And I think we keep having to develop those products that people will be interested in. And we need to also stop products being so easily manipulated and being able to ruin lives at points. I think we need to be better at that. But I think the big thing, and me and Mary both spoke about this a little bit earlier as well, is we just need to get rid of some of the difficulty in using it. People don't want to have to know how to switch between 3, 4, 5 chains. They don't want to know that they've got some token to do something, and then they've not got the gas, and they get gas, and then they move it to a different chain. Then they found out they haven't got gas on that chain, so they have to get gas again. It's just not accessible. People don't want to do that. And so we have to find a way to make that process easier. And linked to that, on-ramping and off-ramping remains a huge problem for Web3. How do people get their money into Web3 in the first place? If you're in a country like Singapore or the UK or the US, that can be quite easy, but it's not easy for everybody. And that's a really big challenge that we have to solve if Web3 is going to make it big in society.
I totally agree with that. Thank you, Victor, for
Thank
that
you so much.
question. I think we have one more up here, and that's Max with a raised hand.
Hello.
Hi, Max.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you, Mary, for this opportunity. My question, I want to know, I saw that someone can stake ONG in the platform, so I didn't see the APY for staking. So, like, what is the APY for staking? And my other question also, I was reading through your white paper, and I didn't see French language in your white paper. Don't you consider including French language based on the fact that most African countries also speak French, and most countries are being colonized by French? So, like, what are you doing about this? These are my two questions.
I like the questions, especially the last one. I think that's a really important question. And so let me go to the first one because it's easy for me to answer. So ONG isn't the staking token. So if you want to stake an ontology, you need ONT. ONG is the gas token. And so the reality is you've got two options with ONG. If you want to compound, then you swap back into ONT and stake, or you can keep it for using as gas, or you can use it in Wing as collateral to borrow against and various other things. And I think that's really important as well. But only ONT is the staking token. Now, as for APR, APY, very similar together anyway, in terms of what you would get. It does vary, so it depends on how nodes are set up. But on average, somewhere between 20 and 30%, sometimes a little bit higher, but on average, roughly 20 to 30% is pretty normal. Now, your really important question about language, which is important, and that's we try and make sure that we cover as many languages as possible, because we genuinely are believers in accessibility and inclusivity. Now, we do have quite a few languages on the website. I'm just looking. I was actually surprised. I was a bit shocked that we don't have French on there at the moment. I thought we did, but absolutely, you're right, we don't. What we do have is a French Telegram channel. So you can go into Ontology France Telegram, where everybody is chatting in French, everybody is in there, and everything that we do is available to you in that language. The website hasn't got French yet, but at least you have got a community. So we have Ontology French, and you can join that community. There's in there at the moment. And they discuss trading, they discuss ontology, they discuss lots of, they're very, very active actually. They take part in all of our quizzes and so on. So if you are interested, I would recommend the Ontology French community on Telegram. It's very, very cool.
All right. Thank you very much for the info. Thank you.
Thank you, Max, for your question. Great question. Yeah, you have lots of groups already in different language, right? On Telegram and.
We do.
Since I've been around for so long.
We've been around a long time, but actually we push that really hard. We try and establish groups so people can access information in their own language, because you mentioned earlier about security. You mentioned earlier about education as well. Education is absolutely key. Crypto can be a dangerous place. There are a lot of bad actors in crypto. There are a lot of people trying to scam people, trying to get hold of their keys, trying to get there. And so adding language as a barrier and a risk factor to that, to make people even more susceptible to those scams, is not great. And that's one of the reasons we have these different language channels, so that you can get the information you need in your own language. So you're not struggling, one, with the complexity of crypto anyway, two, with these bad actors, and three, with language. You don't want a language barrier on top of that. And that's why we actively build as many languages as we can.
That's great. Very good. All right, Geoff, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I think we could go on for much longer, and maybe you can come back at some point.
I'd love to, Mary. Really
amazing.
Really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, the same. I love we had the conversation. It's not like so stiff. It's very good.
Yeah.
So feel free to reach out again to me and add me to your, because you're now on your ontology thing, so I don't have your.
No, I am, but I shall get in touch with my normal account as well.
Yeah, very good. So before we end, I would like to obviously thank you so much for coming, and tell everyone in here who couldn't ask your questions now, feel free to go to their, where is this best, on Telegram probably?
Yeah, come and join us on Telegram. We're always there. We're always chatting. We're very active, and it's pretty chilled out as a community. Come and have a chat with us.
Do you have voice chat as well, or AMAs in-house?
Do you know, we run a conversation every Tuesday, and we have a chat on that. That's done on text, and we run community spaces on Twitter every week, and we also run a community chat on Discord every week. So we have 3 opportunities for the community, either from typing or from talking, just to come and chill out and have a chat about things.
That's great. I love that. And yeah, before we also end, please go ahead, and the floor is yours for some closing statements from you, Geoff.
Yeah, no. So first and foremost, really appreciate you having us here. It's great to come and chat to people and chat to new people as well. As you can probably tell, I do like talking. Sometimes I struggle to stop. And look, I think it's really cool in that I think you've got a lot of people on here looking at different ideas, different opportunities, different things they can get into. And I'm a big believer of learning by doing. And so if you're interested in ID, come and set one up, set one up, see what it's about, just see what's happening. If you're interested in staking, just start small. You can drop 1 ONT token into staking to have a look. And so it's a great way to get involved in different things you may not have done yet. Get an ID set up, try some staking, come and chat with us as a community. We're a friendly bunch.
Oh, here's one more question from me, actually. If I have another wallet and I want to buy Ontology token, can I put them in other wallets, or do
Absolutely, yeah, no problem. I mean, you can, we're on Binance. You can nip onto Binance and buy ONT and ONG. We're on various centralized exchanges. Trust Wallet supports Ontology. There's plenty of places you can go.
Okay, very good. Great. And also another question: do you like pizza with pineapple or without?
I don't mind it with pineapple. I actually had pizza tonight. My favorite pizza is pepperoni with some peppers and some jalapenos.
Okay, but you don't mind
I don't mind it with
trying.
pineapple. I don't.
Okay.
I never buy it. My wife sometimes buys it, and sometimes I steal a piece of hers, but usually I don't.
Okay. Very nice. Happy to have you here, Geoff. It was great talking with you. And thank you everyone for coming and listening here at Crypto Miners. We will have another AMA later today, so I hope to hear more from you then.